I'm going to explain the symptoms of the four main eating disorders this morning. I'm not just going to tell you the symptoms, I'm going to explain what they mean. And the four main eating disorders are anorexia, bulimia, binge eating disorder, and OSFED, other specified feeding or eating disorders. And I'm going to actually delve into the symptoms and explain what they mean. I'm going to start with OSFED because it covers everything not covered by the other specific disorders. Now I'm taking this from the DSM-5, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual 5. OSFED used to be called eating disorder not otherwise specified in the DSM-4. So that's why if you're confused, it's the same thing, but they've changed the symptoms a little bit. OSFED is used to describe individuals for whom a full diagnostic criteria are not met, but the reasons remain unspecified or the clinician does not have adequate information to make a more definitive diagnosis. So, a typical anorexia nervosa, the person meets all the criteria for anorexia nervosa except with the weight criteria, where their weight remains within the above normal range despite significant weight loss. So they may have lost 50 pounds, but they're still in the above normal range. Atypical bulimia nervosa. They don't meet the frequency criterion. So they binge less than once a week, or they've been doing it fewer than 3 months. And if they've been doing it fewer than 3 months, they will eventually meet the criteria for bulimia nervosa. Binge eating disorder. In this one, again, the frequency, so on average less than once a week, or fewer than 3 months. And again, if they've been doing it fewer than 3 months, they will eventually meet the criteria for binge eating disorder. Purging disorder. It's a disorder that's in the absence of binge eating. So they're purging, but they're not binging. Night eating syndrome. In night eating syndrome, people have recurrent episodes of night eating, and they intake calories as many as 25%, at least 25% of caloric intake after the evening meal, and awakening with indigestion at least twice per week. So they're eating at night, and they're eating a lot at night. And that's one of the criteria for diagnosis of OSFED. Now, I'm going to go to anorexia nervosa. Okay, so symptoms include a low body mass index for one's age, height, and weight. And that's important to recognize that it's age, height, and weight. So it varies. It depends on things like at my age, a slightly higher weight would be expected even at an anorexic weight because I'm 53. But I'm only 5'6", so that would bring the weight down. Amenorrhea, which is causing menses to stop. Hair becomes brittle and skin becomes yellow and unhealthy. Now, amenorrhea is one that, if you're in your 50s, you may not have amenorrhea because you may have gone through menopause. I went through an early menopause, which I'm convinced I went through because of my anorexia. I went through menopause at 45. So by 47, I was done. So I don't get amenorrhea. I don't have any period to lose. Fear of even the slightest weight gain, taking all precautionary measures to avoid weight gain or becoming overweight. Yes, that's self-explanatory. It's taking all precautions to stay thin, to not become overweight, to keep losing weight. Rapid, continuous weight loss. Again, self-explanatory. The weight loss is often quite rapid, and it's continuous. Lanugo, which is soft, fine hair growing over the face and body, and that's that soft, fine hair that you find on anorexics that grows to try to protect the body. An obsession with counting calories and monitoring fat contents of food. And we anorexics are obsessed with counting calories and monitoring fat and monitoring carbs and monitoring everything in our food to make sure that it meets our needs. And our needs are not the needs of a normal person. We have it mixed up. Preoccupation with food, recipes, or cooking, may cook elaborate dinners for others but not eat the food themselves or consume a very small portion. That is true. We are obsessed with food. We know all about food. I am a very good cook, but I don't eat what I cook. Food restrictions despite being underweight or at a healthy weight. Yes, we restrict. We have foods that are good foods and foods that are bad foods. Food rituals such as cutting food into tiny pieces, refusing to eat around others, or hiding or discarding of food. That's self-explanatory, and again, that's very true. May use laxatives, diet pills, Epicac, or water pills to flush food out of their system after eating, or may engage in self-induced vomiting, though this is a more common symptom of bulimia. Yes, we definitely do. We use all sorts of types of tools to get calories out of our bodies. Excessive exercise. Yeah, we do all kinds of exercises to use calories. Perception of self is overweight, even though they might not be. This is body dysmorphia. We have ourselves in body dysmorphia. Intolerance to cold and frequent complaints of being cold. Body temperature may be lower, hypothermia, in an effort to conserve energy due to malnutrition. And that's very true. I wear sweaters in summer. Our body temperatures go lower, and it doesn't always recover. Hypotension or orthostatic hypotension, which is the heart, and it's beating lower than it should. And that is very serious. I have a very low heartbeat. Bradycardia or tachycardia, which is a very uneven heartbeat. Depression, anxiety disorders, and insomnia. And again, those are self-explanatory. I'm always up at 2 a.m. Solitude, may avoid friends and family and become more withdrawn and secretive. Yeah, we tend to withdraw. We tend to stay to ourselves. Abdominal distension, so the abdomen becomes distended because of the lack of food. Halitosis from vomiting or starve-induced ketosis, so bad breath. Dry hair and skin, as well as hair thinning. Yep, the body doesn't have the nutrition to be healthy. Chronic fatigue, we are always tired. Rapid mood swings, yep. Being protective of one's social media accounts due to eating disorder content. Having feet discoloration causing an orange appearance. Having severe muscle tension and aches and pains. Seeming on edge more often than usual. Having teary eyes and suicidal tendencies. I tried to commit suicide several times. Evidence habits of self-harming or self-loathing, and some anorexics will self-harm frequently. They don't like themselves. Admiration of thinner people. We always want to be thinner. This is considered an obsessive-compulsive disorder. And obsessive-compulsive disorder is highly comorbid with anorexia nervosa, particularly the restrictive subtype. And that is not surprising because there's so many comparative behaviors that run through them, so it is not surprising. Now I'm going to do bulimia nervosa. Okay, chronic gastric reflux after eating secondary to vomiting. So gastric reflux, as you know, is where there's a sort of upping of food, and it kind of refluxes up into the body, and you have to push it back down. Dehydration or hypokalemia due to renal potassium loss in the presence of alkalosis and frequent vomiting. So dehydration is a real issue. Electrolyte imbalance, which can lead to abnormal heart rhythms, cardiac arrest, and even death. And electrolytes are very important. We have to keep them in balance to live normally. Esophagitis or inflammation of the esophagus. So the esophagus becomes inflamed from all the vomiting. Behr's syndrome, a rupture in the esophageal wall due to vomiting, and that can be very serious. It can be life-threatening. Oral trauma, in which repetitive insertion of fingers and other options causes laceration to the lining of the mouth or throat, and again, that's very serious. It causes very serious problems. Russell signs, calluses on knuckles and back of hands due to repeated trauma from incisors. The incisors being the teeth, and that's self-explanatory. Perimyelitis, or severe dental erosion of tooth enamel, and the teeth come out. Swollen salivary glands, for example, in the neck under the jawline. And that's very serious, very painful. Gastroparesis, or delayed emptying, so trouble emptying the bowels. Constipation, peptic ulcers, and infertility, and constant weight fluctuations are common. Now I'm going to go to binge eating disorder. And that'll be the last one. Okay. Eating much faster than normal during binge, perhaps in a short space of time. So eating very quickly. Eating until uncomfortably full. Eating a large amount when not hungry. Subjective loss over how much or what is eaten, so not knowing how much is eaten. Binges may be planned in advance, involving the purchase of special binge foods and the allocation of specific time for binging, sometimes at night. Eating alone or secretly due to embarrassment over the amount of food consumed. There may be a dazed mental state during the binge, so an out-of-body experience, completely out-of-state experience. Not being able to remember what was eaten after the binge. Feeling of guilt, shame, or disgust following a food binge, and that's self-explanatory. In contrast to bulimia nervosa, binge eating episodes are not regularly followed by activities to prevent weight gain, such as self-induced vomiting, laxative or enema misuse, or strenuous exercise. Binge eating disorder is characterized by overeating than more by overeating than dietary restriction, and over-concern about body shape. Obesity is common in persons with binge eating disorder, as are depressive features, low self-esteem, stress, and boredom. So it is like the binge without the purge. And that is the 4 main eating disorders. So if you have any questions, please just feel free to ask, because I gave you a lot of information. And I'm sure there are questions. So please just feel free to ask. Thanks so much. Bye-bye. Oh, and please, if you haven't subscribed already, hit the subscribe button. And I love y'all.